Okay, everybody. Well, thank you for coming. Appreciate you taking the time this afternoon to stop in and hear our story about where we feel the serialization-enabled supply chain is going in the future in the pharma space. What we're going to do is talk a little bit today about what the regulatory status is, where folks are at from a regulatory perspective, and then give you some ideas of the lessons learned that we've had and some of the challenges and opportunities with the serialized supply chain, and then go into what we feel will be opportunities for us to continue to use that platform to drive the future. My partner here today is from TraceLink, Jean-Marie Alnay, is Vice President for EMEA for TraceLink. Very strong partners of ours, and I think you'll see as we go along here throughout the presentation how we're using and how we're partnering with TraceLink and other divisions within our own company, UDG Healthcare, to go ahead and build this platform for the future for the serialized world.
So let's can you hear me? Yeah? So in terms of regulatory around serialization, just to give you a quick update about what is the status. Before engaging the patient, you have, of course, to be compliant with the different regulation. And the US market, which is on the left, is around 2 years ahead of the European market in terms of regulation. So there is now a strong focus in terms of the patient engagement. And that's good for the European market because we can learn lessons learned from the US market. In terms of Europe, as you probably know, the main goal for the serialization was to get the country ready for accepting data via the European hub to manage all the master data from the manufacturer. So there is 26 national systems which are live, which is great because a year ago we were not expecting to have such a level of preparedness for those countries. Register at the MVO, you have about 1,000 companies. You still have quite a lot, about maybe 500 who have not been registered. And if you are in the room here and you have not done your registration yet, I would encourage you to do it because there is a queue, there is a lot of work to do. It's a stepwise approach, but you have to start sooner than later because if you look at February 9th, 2019, there is only 120 days of working days. You have Christmas, you have weekends, so you really have to start now if you haven't started. Who has started? Do we have any manufacturer in the room? Can you put your hands up? Have you started already your process? That's good one. Today, as of every Monday, actually the EMVO is publishing the number of companies which are connected live. There is about 215 companies which are already connected to the European hub. I'm very pleased to say that TraceLink as an organization, 55% of those companies are TraceLink customers. So that's really for us the proof of all the work we've done for the last 4 years in Europe to commit to evangelize the market and making sure the market is ready for serialization. The volume will be 80% of medicine will be covered by a serialization regulation by 2019-2020. And aggregation, it's under discussion. There is a huge debate. It is not part of the regulation, but at the end there is some needs. When you think about the serialization program and the EU FMD regulation, it's not only covering the manufacturer or the CMO, but it's covering as well up to the dispensers, the pharmacies, the hospitals. So there is a real need which is under discussion right now by the regulation.
So one of the questions that we get talked to an awful lot about in our industry, as a service provider and a contract packager, the question really is, how has the serialization piece changed our industry in general? There's some positives, there's some challenges, and then there's some opportunities. The first challenge and opportunity was the fact that we as a company had to make a very significant, or a parent company made a very significant investment in funding this infrastructure. So well over $25 million we've invested for our U.S. and our European operations in order to enable our supply chain or our supply chain capabilities with serialization software and hardware. That did cause operational disruption because in the serialized world, there's not as much flexibility as there used to be in the non-serialized world from a packaging and an operations perspective. And we had to learn through that learning curve, and we've done that very well to the point where it's actually helped in some instances, helped us streamline processes, and in others it caused some challenges depending on the layout of the lines. The supply chain integration has changed in many ways our relationship with clients, where it's gotten more strategic versus tactical because of our capabilities now to exchange information and get much more aligned with our customers' infrastructure, with our customers' applications and computer systems. So it's actually helped us kind of merge into more of a strategic space with our clients. So again, a positive. The partnerships have really merged to where we knew that we could not handle this situation on our own, and so we had to go out and find strategic relationships with technical partners that would also allow us to then bundle services together to continue to utilize our infrastructure and enhance services around those partnership capabilities, which is where we got into kind of the space with TraceLink and their customer communities.
You're right, Rick, because if you look at serialization, for all of us, or all of you, I would say, it's a cost, and it's always you getting to a meeting, customers say, oh my God, it's a cost. How do I justify that? First of all, it's a regulation, so you have to do it. You have to go through it. That's where CMOs and CPOs like Sharp invested a lot in terms of the infrastructure to serve their customers. But you can serialize, but if you are not able to exchange information between your partners, because a supply chain is not only a manufacturing plant who will produce, and that's it. You have to transfer the information from one partner to another one, up to the dispenser, which will be the clinics, the pharmacies, and the hospitals. But in the middle, you have some 3PLs, you have some wholesalers. So most of the work right now for the industry is around integration. And having an integrated environment where you can exchange information is our domain at TraceLink. That's why I think we're working with Sharp, and they took us as a partners to enable all the connection with their customers who are expecting the data back from them. They are producing, they are packaging, but they need to send the information back. And that's create a community of users, of companies. And TraceLink, we have about 270,000 entities in our network. So we have a full coverage of the supply chain from manufacturers, CMO, 3PL, wholesalers, dispensers, pharmacy, and at the end to the patient. If you go to the next one.
Yeah, what Jean-Marie is referring to is that in our business, the major fundamental change, aside from the investment and a bit of the operational issues that we've encountered, is in our world now, we look at it that we had always done business in the physical supply chain, so put the product into the package and get it back to our client distribution center. We've merged now the physical world into the electronic world, and we have to manage both, for which we hadn't been equipped historically, but with the investments and with our partnerships, we've been able to make that happen.
And I would encourage you to review your partners to see if they are ready for that challenge, because if they are not ready, we are 8th, 10th of October now. If they are not ready now, you better look at maybe changing your providers, because there is only 3 months remaining. And to do that, it's going to be very challenging. If you look at the information sharing, and I know, we're working hard on boxes, on hard work and serializing, but it's all around information sharing. What do you share as a data? Today's a major industry issue. You have counterfeiting, you have drug diversion. Imagine you have an expensive drug that you are selling in Spain and Germany. The price is not the same in Germany, it's cheaper in Spain or in Italy. And finally, your drugs that you are selling in Spain at a lower price, you find them on the market. That's less revenue for the organization, so you have to look at that. Revenue leakage, supply chain inefficiency, that's important as well, and I strongly believe that after 4 years in this industry that serialization brings some value. It's not only a cost, as I said earlier, but that's going to be able to optimize this relationship between your partners, and you will get some saving. You may not recover all the cost, but over the time you will get that recover. And finally, today you have in the world today, in the pharma, you have a silo of data for manufacturing, data for wholesalers, etc. And what we are trying to do with TraceLink, having that community of customers, is to have the concept of what we call data lakes. So we are putting all the information in a kind of lake where manufacturers or any actor in the supply chain, which will be TraceLink customers, who are TraceLink customers, will be able to start doing some data analytics for better medicines, because what we want at the end as well is to have a better medicines for our family, kids, and of course for the world itself.
So this to us is the essence of why it's become exciting, not only for our company, Sharp Packaging, which is, again, picture that as the bricks and mortar, we put the product into the package. What you see rendered up here is really the green area is our sister division, Ashfield. Same overarching parent company, totally different marketing approach. So the green and the blue combined is crossing the entire product life cycle. So what we're trying to illustrate on this is that from proof of concept, phase 3, phase 1 clinical, all the way through phase 3 and launch, indication expansion, maturity, what we're trying to illustrate here is that we have now the range of services within UDG Healthcare to provide our clients, pharma, virtual, large, small biotech, et cetera, with the ability to kind of choose any service that can be extended around their brand that can support their brand. What you see behind that is the TraceLink logo, and what we're trying to demonstrate in this is the idea that we do have the services in Asheville, we have the services in Sharp. How do we take advantage of the infrastructure we've already deployed at any point in time in the product life cycle and bundle the resources for our clients who are becoming a little bit more smaller, virtual, specialized, personalized medicine? How do we bundle those services and offer the clients the services that they need at the point in time in the product life cycle when they need it? And how do we have a platform already existing with TraceLink that we can leverage and take advantage of? More importantly, if we have joint clients, which is more and more the case between TraceLink and Sharp, that connectivity becomes very efficient, very effective, and we can turn on and turn off services as our clients desire.
Stay on it because that's very interesting. If you look at what they're doing at Asheville in around patient support engagement, disease educations, market expansion, TraceLink as an organization more focused on the IT, on the data, this is what we provide to the market. You know, we have developed some mobility apps to connect patients. So a manufacturer will be able to exchange information with a patient. Of course, the patient, you as a patient will have to opt in. You know, GDPR and all those regulations, we have to cover that as well. Disease function, disease education, as soon as you will be connected as a patient to a mobile app, you will be able to receive some further information from your manufacturer. That's the world of today. If you go to the next slide. So the world of
what this looks like kind of sliced a different way.
Yeah.
Think about the range of services throughout the product lifecycle, but let's think about what's really important for us is how do we take a look at the entire stakeholder list that has to come together to take a look at that upper right quadrant, which is really the patient and or the patient's caregiver. How do we bundle these services together and provide add-on services to that patient primarily? And once we have that connection through an app or through a web interface or through a phone, a smartphone, how do we then leverage the other stakeholders around that value proposition to go ahead and continue to advance those services that are connected to the patient? If you look at the upper left where we show the Sharp logo, the supply chain, and that lock feature, what clients are currently talking to us about now is that how can we make the supply chain more secure than just serialization?
Yeah.
That's a real fact that's coming to us now. We have means to do that with some layered security features, but that's only the tip of the iceberg with respect to the services that we can bundle. So if you look in the middle, our relationship with TraceLink is really all about the compliance piece of it. But this gives you a graphic of how we can start to build that stakeholder connectivity, either through the brand or through a different stakeholder, that will meet the needs that they have utilizing the infrastructure and the database that we already have in place. Again, rapid interface, rapid integration, and rapid use of the deployment, very expensive deployment, asset-intense deployment that we can offer on behalf of our clients.
Yeah, branding is very important nowadays. And as I said earlier, you know, the future of medicine, what is the future of medicine? Probably most of you, when you're going to a doctor because you have a pain or something like that, you know before going to the doctors what you have, according to a small diagnostic you can do yourself, even the drugs that you would like to ask. And that's due to smartphones, connectivity. We won't escape. You know, you will not escape about that. So basically, patients will be more empowered. They will have more access to data. They will be able to guide the medicines that they want. So we don't want to go to the extreme. I think in Europe it's not necessarily the case about having a patient like a consumer, but in some country, you know, a patient is a consumer, and a consumer has a choice. So how do you differentiate as an MAH, as a manufacturer, compared to your competitors? It's by having that capability to connect directly to your patient, to have that information shared for a better medicines, for personalized medicines, custom medicines. You know, I don't know if you heard about that, but there is already some production of 3D medicines. You want to have some specific drugs for some kids, for have the kids to get their pills on a regular basis instead of to have a standard pill. You design a little car, a little fish, and that's becoming more commitment from the patient, which is the kids, to take the drugs. Digital patients, IoT, you will have a lot of connectivity. You saw a few weeks ago, Apple released a new iWatch 4 with ECG. So that's where we're going to be. A lot of you probably have already some control watch on your wrist for that. Predictive medicine, gene therapy, transparency. I think transparency is one of the biggest benefit as well in terms of visibility of the data that a patient will get at the end. And he will be able to scan a drug that he's buying to verify if that drug is okay or not. It's not a counterfeit drug. So that's really where we are, where you will be, where your kids will be in the future, definitely.
So what we'd like to talk to you about now is what would this look like in real life? What can we actually deliver today? And the way that I always think about it is something that's really most important to me in my life, which is my family or my children. And maybe you all can relate a little bit to this if you have children on your own, but picture the scenario where if you see on the right there, you see an infant, a newborn baby, and picture the fact that you're maybe a new parent, it's your first child. We all know that have children. Those first ones are always the ones that are kind of the ones that we're very nurturing about. Not that we don't nurture the other ones, but it gets a little easier after the first one. It's the middle of the night, and let's say it's February, and it's freezing cold outside. So you're not really that anxious to take that child out to the doctor should something, you know, look unsafe maybe about the product that you have to use to inject the child. And let's say the child has some kind of complex, you know, dosing regime, some kind of indication, God forbid, that they need a daily injection multiple times during the day, and it's your job to inject the child middle of the night. You go to the refrigerator, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you get out the vial that you're going to have to draw into a syringe and inject your child with. And when you get that vial, for whatever reason, you've been doing this for several months now, that vial just doesn't look right to you. There's something about it. Maybe it's a little bit off color. Maybe it just looks a little bit like maybe particulates. There's something not right about it. So the first thing you want to do is you want to have somebody reassure you before you go ahead and make that injection in your child, because God forbid it could do harm. Or at a minimum, it could not have some kind of medicinal effect on the child. Very important they take it. So what do you do? In today's world, what we can do with the apps that are on a smartphone, common smartphone, is we can use the package to become that kind of that peace of mind. We could take the package with a smartphone and go ahead and scan the package and get a very instant authentication that that product is in fact legitimate product. It's not counterfeit. But that doesn't mean that that product was outside of the cold chain environment. So maybe the time outside of refrigeration was too high and it's in, you know, it's had some kind of a negative impact on the product. Should I inject it even though I think it's legitimate? I don't know. Again, I'm a first-time parent. So what I could do on that same app that we've built into it is you say, do you want to talk to somebody else that's maybe a clinician? And if you hit yes on that, you've opted into a program that that brand supports, and now you're having a FaceTime session basically with a clinician that actually would sit in one of our call centers for our sister division, Ashfield. Now you're speaking to a nurse practitioner, you're speaking to a physician assistant, you're speaking to a clinician. It can say, point the camera of the phone towards the vial and let me take a look. And they're going to say, did you authenticate? Yes, no. What if you get a bad hit on the authentication? It looks like it is counterfeit. What then do you do? How long can you go without making the injection with your child that's safe before you take them out in the middle of the night? So it's that patient engagement, that sense of mind, that ability to reach clinicians and or other support during that whole treatment, therapy regime that we're talking about here. You can imagine that's just one benefit that we can put onto the apps. You could access your clinician direct as a second stage and so on. So it's all about building that brand value around the ability for us to collaborate, the ability for us to share data in that supply chain.
If you think about adverse event management, for example, I'm coming from the world of clinical trials and pharmacovigilance. You are able for the first time to link a unique identifier on a box with what would happen for you as a patient when you take a drug. Instead of to call a center and say, oh, give me the numbers behind, you just need to flash with your smartphone or to scan the box, that will give all the information to the manufacturer online about that adverse event. And then the patient can be focused on the issue he has and not only reading some number on the box, give me the lot number, the expired date, because I need to check if the condition of my drug was okay. You can add some temperature control, as Rick said, in the process as well. So all of that can be part of your unique identifier and what's the historic of your box. So as a patient, you will simply download through iTunes or Google Play or whatever, an app, which will be a TraceLink app, but not a Pfizer or GSK app. But because of your unique identifier, when you will scan the box, that will identify the manufacturer, that will identify the drugs, and then you can verify if it's not a converted drugs or not. So if there was any issue with the serial numbers during the manufacturing process. You can put some reminder as well, because for example, you have to take your drugs 3 times a day. Your phone can ring 3 times a day. Don't forget your drugs. So because you recorded your drugs that you are taking in your application, that will give you those information. You will be able to exchange further information with your manufacturer as well. So your manufacturer can send you some update flyers. You know, the flyers, papers that you have in your box. If it does change, you will get it. That could even go beyond in terms of relationship with your pharmacy, because your pharmacy will give you the prescribed drug. Maybe the pharmacy can call you and say, your drug expires in 1 month, you need to be careful of your stock, come back to me. So you have a kind of different relationship between your pharmacy and the patient. And again, at the end, it's for the benefit of the patient, and you're gonna have a better, what we could call loyalty in terms of branding as well for the to the manufacturer, for the patient. When you have a rare disease, you know, it's vital, critical to take a drug in the right condition. If it was supposed to be manufacturer control in the right condition, you can check all of that with the app.
So go back to the model and just give you some final thoughts on where we're at. If we look at the industry again, upper left, we're all about supply chain security. We're all about counterfeiting, anti-counterfeiting, and meeting the regulations. We are in a stage right now where we have layered security requirements coming because there have been counterfeiters that are already beating or defeating the serialized world. So we know we have to continue to enhance that. We tried to demonstrate that through that cloud-based collaboration partner that we have in TraceLink, we're able to build those relationships that can start adding value with what's most important to all of us, which is that patient and or their caregiver. Yeah. But if you continue to go around, you can start to see the programs that can be built on that same platform, which is really our vision. The brand awareness, education, the clinician piece of it. In the US, probably a very different model than what we might find in Europe, but the payers themselves, the third-party payers, yeah. Any kind of brand adherence or compliance to the dosing regimen will more than likely get certain products on formulary faster than others if we can prove the efficacy of a specific kind of adherence program. Employee health records, maybe a little bit further down, but certainly not on the CRO and working on the clinical side with mining data in the clinical world. To get folks and clients into that whole, how do I refine this platform? How do I join the platform at the clinical trial material stage? How do I take advantage of that network that later is going to help me transition from clinical into commercial? So it's all about that lifestyle or life cycle of the product. It's all about leveraging that huge investment that we've all had, but ultimately it's all about, you know, putting that power back into the patient, which is what we're all here for as an industry to service.
You have few points here. You have information sharing we talked about earlier. How do you transfer information between the different points? Second point is additional business value. As I said earlier, serialization has a cost. Now it's time to get some benefit. That's what you can get in terms of patient relationship and empower patient for better health. That's why our industry is here today. It's to get better solution drugs for our patients for a better life.
So we have a few minutes left. We'd love to entertain any questions anybody has.
Yeah.
More importantly, we'd love to entertain any challenges that you may have and want to speak with us about. Jean-Marie and his team is also in the Sharp booth today, so you can come and visit us at 8:30.
And tomorrow as well, and the day after.
As well. Please bring us your challenges. If we can't meet those challenges, we'll tell you that we can't. But if there's a way that through innovation and deployment of the platforms we have, we can meet those challenges, we're certainly interested in doing that. So with that, thank you for attention. Does anybody have any questions.
It's not an easy job, huh? Let's say it this way. It sounds magic. We are not magicians, but we have the infrastructure. We have everything in place to be better on that. Any questions? Come on.
My name is Anisha.
Yeah.
I work for Pakistan.
Yeah.
We have started implementing serialization, and what we have noticed is that it reduces the speed of the lines due to the different processes of printing the 2D barcodes and then scanning and so forth. So the productivity has been reduced maybe by, say, 20 to 25%.
Yeah.
So is there any way that we can bring it back to the original level?
I will give it to Rick to experiment what you've done in implementing your line system, because you have done for many years already.
We started with very high-speed lines with a specific package design where we're doing about 330 units a minute. Well, we realized that if we had everything in line in the series, then each subsequent piece of the operation would reduce the overall net line speed. So we've decided over the years to kind of put inline buffers, which is really breaks in that inline or that sequential processing method. So we built our serialization program around flexibility and what we call flex back ends or PAX lines. So our serialization is usually at the end of the line, where we decouple that from the normal packaging process and then enter it at the end of the package. And so what you get is a very high efficiency with the serialization, but you don't lose the efficiency of the front end packaging process. So I think that whole concept of buffering or breaking the line and putting some in-process buffers to keep the efficiency higher is what we've learned over the years. There is like a typical learning curve associated with any new packaging process that we've deployed serialization with. Saw that learning curve maybe 30 to 90 days, depending on how frequently you run the packaging line, until you get back to that normal packaging speed in general. But I think the buffering and the flexibility of the lines is really where we've leveraged the technology. Good question, though. That happens, I think, for most of the folks. OEE, if that's what you measure, tends to go down a certain percentage. We look at ours in terms of efficiency being a contractor. Thanks. Good question, though.
Any other questions? No?
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Have a great exhibition.